Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. And as always, during these CFP ranking shows with Kevin Noon, we are all here. How are everybody doing out there? How is everybody doing out there? Kevin, Tom, I'll ask Tom first because that's the way the show goes. How's it going?
Tony, can I just start us off by saying something that will probably shock and almost certainly appall the vast majority of our audience?
Yes.
It's nice to be here with Kevin. It's good to have the whole gang back together again. It feels like this is one of these, like, it's just a stupid Tuesday show, but we're sitting here watching these stupid bunch of idiots in Grapevine, Texas, decide something that doesn't actually mean that much for anything moving forward. This still feels like, oh, we're like making some progress through the college football season, and it's not that far from being over already somehow.
Kevin, please do a better sale job than Tom just did on the importance that we are about to witness.
I thought I was going to be offended when he was talking about idiots, thinking he was talking about us, but obviously he wasn't. We know
that's inferred.
We know these rankings are the most important thing in the world, along with coaching rumors from people that we've never heard of who bought their check marks. But aside from that, no, I'm excited. I mean, certainly have stepped back a little bit from some of the videos. I'm trying to get myself back onto Big Me Kickoff a little bit more, but I'm home, fellas. I'm glad to be back and getting ready to talk here at the top of the hour about the rankings, and either we will agree, wholeheartedly with them, or there will be all sorts of anger when activists, pollsters go and do their thing.
I love the terminology of activists. That's so good. Are we all in agreement that Indiana is going to be ranked number one today? Yes. Kevin, Tom, that. Kevin, where are you on this?
Nothing would surprise me. I mean, I understand the reasoning. I'm not going to sit there and get upset at people who say that Indiana will be number one or should be number one. Ohio State's schedule kind of fell apart a little bit. Texas, Texas is back. Texas beat Vandy, and that's important. I watched whatever that SEC Shorts is, and they told me that it was important. So therefore it is. Nobody knew that Penn State really was going to have the bottom drop out or whatever. But there will be Ohio State fans that are upset that Ohio State's not number one, but it'll all sort itself out. Don't worry. Have faith.
Yes, we did need to spend more time on the Jordan Kapler thing of Tom stop talking, but that's done now. The most important question comes from Diffuse Field. Who have they played, Paul? And that's the eternal argument. And what we do know is they haven't played nobody. And also, if they had played an SEC team, they would have lost. Those are the two great truths that we know, the Higgs boson and those two things. And it's like everything else revolves around that. In terms of the R. Larson question here, are y'all actually going to show the TV during the show? No, we cannot do that. That is copyright infringement. We will be I don't think we have any graphics or anything because it's going to be on the... I didn't want to put it on you.
Oh, don't worry. I'm all set. I'm ready to go. As soon as those rankings come out, we will have the full top 25, and we will also have the bracket of, so if the season ended today, here's where it would be. And if the season ended today, Ohio and Miami would still be playing a football game, so that would be kind of awkward. So and Akron and UMass.
Well,
major football playoff implications in both places.
Army Navy already play after the season, so what's with the MAC doing it? No worries there. Yes, Buckeye Ride 19. Thank you for keeping people informed in my current ESPN YouTube TV blackout. I feel for all of these people that are dealing with this, but as I tweeted, like, nobody's worried about the shareholders. Nobody's talking about their importance and what they need to get in their pockets. Like, this is the holiday season. A lot of cold-hearted people out there.
Heather Dinich is on right now, so stand strong, YouTube TV.
Andre Green says it shouldn't matter who is number one. Finishing number one in January is really what matters. In your opinion, like these these preseason polls and these first polls are really, really important. If it weren't for preseason polls, do you know how many SEC teams would not be ranked right now? Like those things do a lot of work, and the initial polls will be doing a lot of work as well. And as Tom, as we always talk about, what do you want to see going on? What do you want to know about the poll? Look at the end of the poll. Look at some of these first teams that are in there. And although the SEC right now, I think about the only 3-loss team that could be in there is like LSU, and there's no way.
There can't be. This is a year where I feel like all the normal rules in terms of, this is about where a 2-loss team is going to end up. None of those rules really apply, because I think you can look at this. There's a lot of teams I look at and I go, that's not a top 10 team. And it's like, well, name 10 other teams that are top 10 teams. And I get to about 3.5 top 5 teams and about 7 top 10 teams. And there's just a lot more parity this year. And you've got bigger conferences where you don't have teams playing as many top level teams as you may have seen at times in the past. And, I know, Alabama played 4 ranked team, beat 4 ranked. We all know. Yes, we all saw that. Does that mean everyone in the SEC did? No, it sure doesn't, but that's okay. That won't keep everyone from hopping on the coattails of the team that did. So they are right now laying out the projected bracket, but they're just sort of putting the bracket out there. And then I think we might be time to sell some insurance and or pickup trucks before we actually do anything consequential. Yes. All right. Time to sell some pickup trucks. So it's going to be, this is the time of year when, Tony, we know what the SEC's record on the field is.
Yes.
This is the time of year where we get to talk about the more important thing. What is the SEC's record in hypothetical matchups with members of other conferences? And as we've learned year after year after year, they're unbeaten. Unbeaten
and really unstoppable, frankly. Everybody pales in comparison. Just imagine, if you will, Kevin, say an Ohio State or an Indiana trying to run through the SEC without losing 1 or 2 or 3 games. It wouldn't happen. Whereas Auburn, a team like Auburn, Arkansas could go through the Big Ten and maybe lose 1 game, maybe, and that's because of poor refereeing. The idea that the SEC isn't the best, we know is crazy, but also that you're going to win a hypothetical game like against Alabama. Have you seen Alabama in hypothetical games this year?
I mean, what's better than undefeated? That's what they are. They're better than undefeated. We know that
9 and -1, best record in America.
We know that all games that don't actually exist, the SEC would win hands down, because they certainly have the strongest, press tool out there, being ESPN. For the people who get ESPN right now, we certainly are being reminded of that in the chat, and I know more than a couple of people that have been affected by that. I overpay for DirecTV, and I've come really close to switching over to YouTube TV multiple times, and my laziness is paying off once again. So that's good. But as Beast Mode Jack Sports Podcast says, quality losses. We know that's something that we'll be talking about. That the power of an SEC loss is much more important, shines much brighter than the power of a Big Ten win. And I think we're going to, we talk about what setting up the rankings by what we see at the bottom of the rankings. Well, the SEC is so valued right now that I don't think we're really going to have to worry about anything much lower than like 16 or 17 in the rankings, because they're going to stash them all in there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think maybe the bottom of the rankings will finally see Iowa in there, as somebody's got to fill out this top 25. I don't expect to see Texas A&M in the top 2. And for the people who are arguing for Texas A&M, that to me feels very silly and shilly. Giving up 40 points to Notre Dame, giving up 42 to Arkansas. Like, you can't do that. And they're giving up 24 points to Texas San Antonio. 25 at LSU is fine. That nice big win there. But defensively, and people I hear people talking glowingly about their defense. And granted, I have not watched them. I only know what 42 points means, and I only know what 40 points mean, and it's not a good defense.
Yeah, and they have had a good defense at times. They at one point had some crazy stat where they had given up, the teams had converted 7 of 37 third downs against them in the first 4 weeks of SEC play or whatever it is. But they've also gotten got in a way that Ohio State hasn't and Indiana hasn't. And so, we'll see. I think our old standby truism is look at the bottom of the rankings to tell you what they want to do at the top. And is Washington ranked between 20 and 25? If they are, that probably is a decent indication that they're going to have Ohio State 1 or 2. If Washington's not, well, then, I mean, how many ranked wins does Ohio State have? Because the difference in that is Washington is 26 versus Washington is 25, or in Illinois, or who who all these different teams have played. Watch the bottom of the poll to see who they're going to end up having at the top. They are really going to string this out. There's Booger McFarland on my screen right now, and I do not have my Eclipse glasses, so we're going to have to. I'm going to just focus on the bottom of the screen here and read the super chat from Mike Farino. I'm really curious how they handle Miami, Notre Dame. Notre Dame was almost by every metric should be ahead, but Miami won week 1. This to me, Kevin, feels like one of these things where they'll probably talk about it for a while, and then eventually they're going to do what they want to do, and that is they're going to put Notre Dame ahead of Miami.
And what happened in week 1 is one thing, and then there's something about how you've looked the next 7 weeks or whatever. And I think that there has to be value in that. I mean, I don't think that you can just sit there and fall in love with what happened week 1. I mean, I think head to head is important. I think that when there is a tie or a virtual tie, that you need to put that into consideration. But let's be honest, Miami and Notre Dame are 2 very different teams right now. And Miami has gone into its recent annual November swoon and has fallen off the table, whereas Notre Dame seems to be one of the hotter teams right now. So, I understand Mike's point in the super chat. And once again, thank you for the super chat, Mike Farino. Get to the top of the queue by jumping in with super chats. It helps us here for certain. But, I don't think that there is I don't think anybody outside of Coral Gables is calling for Miami to be ahead of Notre Dame, unless you have a real rooting interest in the Canes for some reason. And we know that that's about 36 people.
Well, I will say I saw Andy Staples say that Notre Dame is capped by Miami, and I don't agree with that, because once you lose multiple games, your argument for this tiebreaker kind of goes out the window. When Notre Dame has lost once since that Miami loss. Miami's lost twice since that Notre Dame win. And the more you lose the credibility. Like nobody's going to take Florida State over Alabama, right? So at what loss do you then no longer have the head-to-head? Is it once you have more losses, or because will one more loss prove that Miami doesn't belong and maybe Notre Dame does, especially when it's a season opening game, which is totally different than all other games. I think most people would agree. And you can only you can only put so much weight on that one game. But I would not be shocked if Notre Dame is ahead. So this week, and they can just keep it that way, and they don't ever have to say like, oh, well, we just liked it better this week.
Okay, so
here we go.
They are really saying the quiet part out loud right now. First team revealed on the poll, number 25, the 6-3 Tennessee Volunteers. Wow. Friends,
we were talking about 3-loss SEC teams, and I never had a chance to chime in. Don't sleep on the Vols.
Number 24, Pitt, 7-2. Just did some in-person scouting with them a couple weeks ago. Impressive team, very odd to see. A Pat Narduzzi team absolutely lighting up the scoreboard. Number 23, Washington. So there you go. The Huskies took forever to get into the human polls. They are now 23 in the college football playoff poll. Number 22, Missouri. And we'll have a graphic with all of this stuff in just
a crawl that I'll put up as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm putting together a graphic that we'll have on the screen, and then you'll be able to just look at that, and we'll just be off to the side shortly, because we know we know what you're here for. It's to look at Tony and then also look at that. Number 21. Guess who's number 21? It is a Big Ten team.
Michigan.
Michigan indeed. 7-2. Ahead of 6-2 Missouri. This is a fascinating group.
Memphis has to be coming up.
You'd think. I'm wondering, is Iowa not in here?
Probably not. Michigan was also 21 in the AP.
Okay. Number 20 Iowa. Look at that. Boy, this is already very heavy Big Ten. And if Tennessee is 25, it's going to be there's going to be about 18 Big Ten and SEC teams in these rankings. With all because there's a lot of kind of fringy type cases, and they're all getting in. 3 Big Ten teams already in.
If you've got 2 losses, you're in.
Yeah, a couple SEC teams in already. Yeah, this is the committee right now already starting to make the case for no, you're not getting 2 ACC teams in. No, you're not getting 2 Big 12 teams in. I mean, I know you can look at this and say, it's only November 4th and it's the first week, and friends, we've been reading these tea leaves for years. Number 19 USC. So now we have 4 Big Ten teams among the first 7 revealed here. So yes, number 18 Miami. My takeaway here already: 4 Big Ten teams among the first 7 revealed. Number 1 Indiana, number 2 Ohio State. Mark it down.
Yep, and Miami is also 18 in the AP. Iowa, of course, not in the AP.
I'll jump in here real quick with a super chat from Beast Mode Jack Sports Podcast. At this point in the season, you should have a real good gauge on just about every team in the top 25, and I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's enough evidence out there. Go ahead, Tom.
Number 17, Georgia Tech, 8-1. You wonder where they would have been before their loss to North Carolina State last weekend.
Probably about 16.
I think they were 8 or 9 in the polls. Speaking of teams that lost last week, Vanderbilt, they are number 16.
All right, that's 1 spot lower than the 15 they were in the AP.
Number 15, Louisville.
Well, this is because Louisville's also is their 14th in the AP. So I'm wondering maybe is it Utah coming up that is going to be jumped in there?
Virginia's number 14. We have not seen Texas yet. Texas, this is going to be higher than Texas.
Texas is 13 in the AP. So
okay.
But we've not seen Utah, who is 17 in the AP.
I can't imagine they're going to be that much higher. Oh, no, you're right. 13 Utah. Interesting.
Because they put a hurt on.
And you're going to BYU highly ranked. I mean, that,
Texas
football is alive and well in the Beehive State.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Farino, really quick. Iowa at 20 means Indiana number 1, I think, and Oregon top 5. Wanted to get that in before we see the rankings, so we can comment on that freshly as opposed to after the fact.
It will be interesting to see who gets that 3rd team in the top 5, whether it's the SEC being Georgia or the Big Ten being Oregon at number 5. And we're still waiting on the 12?
Number 12 is Oklahoma.
Okay.
Oklahoma. Okay.
So they are going to be the first ones out right now because they have to have a non-power team in the 12. So.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say Ohio State might have a top 10 win if they keep holding off Texas here.
Texas is 11.
There you go. Just outside.
John says, I'm an IU alumni, but a huge Ohio State fan. Never imagined these teams would play each other for Big Ten championship. I think Ohio State wins, and I will be there. Indianapolis is a great venue to watch a football game. Mm-hmm. You're going to get. I mean, it's a medium city with a great downtown, and when there is a big event there, it is the event. Whereas if you put something in Chicago, it kind of gets absorbed because it's Chicago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
and
I
boy,
don't know that we're missing anything in the top 10 that isn't already in the AP. So
number
Notre
10 is
Dame.
Notre Dame.
And then I'm guessing 9 will be Texas Tech. Not to spoil this for everybody. And then Texas Tech and BYU play this weekend in Provo.
Provo, Spain.
Yes. And I think for the Big 12's purposes, shouldn't they want BYU to win that so that then BYU can lose the Big 12 championship game as an undefeated team, and then 2 Big 12 teams can go?
Yes,
So
that's probably in their best interests for sure.
look for Texas Tech to get screwed this weekend.
BYU fans throwing tortillas and getting Texas Tech punished.
Yeah, so Notre Dame, 8 spots ahead of Miami. That ship has sailed,
Mm-hmm.
and it sailed a while ago.
Yeah, number 9 is Oregon.
Ooh,
This is one of these things where the Miami Notre Dame thing is interesting because they will talk all the time about the fact that, if these teams are close, we're comparing them head to head, and then you're comparing, and that's when the head to head matchup will come in. If we don't view the teams as close, then they're not getting compared, so it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
That's probably exactly
Yep.
what you're going to hear on that from the committee.
Oregon, they are not. The committee is not enamored with the flash and the colors and all of that. So that's interesting. Oregon has not looked outstanding at times, and of course has the home loss.
Mm-hmm.
Looked rough a couple of times against bad teams as well, and just out talented those teams. So that's interesting. I assume Texas Tech is coming up because you can't have Ole Miss down here. They're from the SEC.
Number 8, Texas Tech.
And I understand them having Texas Tech ahead of Oregon here because Texas Tech lost without their starting quarterback. They always will take that into account when stuff like that happens. So this is a way for them to give the nod.
BYU number 7.
Oof. Wow. So you're going to have
you haven't seen Ole Miss yet. You haven't seen
Alabama or Georgia. So you're going to have 3 SEC teams.
6 is Ole Miss. Yeah, it's
3 SEC teams with losses ahead of BYU.
Yeah, it's going to be 4 SEC teams and 2 Big 10 teams in the top 6.
Boy, that's not good for the Big 12 in terms of getting 2 in there, but it would have to be an undefeated team losing in the Big 12 championship anyway, pretty much to have a legitimate hope, especially if Texas Tech loses this week and goes to 8-2.
One thing that's interesting is Virginia is, I think, going to be the top-ranked ACC team, unless there's someone I'm not thinking of. So then that means that number 11 Texas and number 12 Oklahoma would currently be out of the field because the ACC would get one of those. Georgia number 5, Alabama number 4, Texas A&M number 3. So there you go.
They're firing through these quickly. They made us wait longer for like 13 than they did for 5, 4, and 3.
Well,
yeah,
13 is a big number. They should have made us wait for 6, 7.
My kids are so mad right now watching at home.
And I keep saying we got to take the power back. Let's ruin this and just run it into the ground.
How are you?
Number 2, Indiana. Wow, interesting.
Oh, wow.
I was
need
really
to change
genuinely not expecting that. And number 1, of course, New Mexico. No.
Well, I need to get rid of my 1,200-word outrageous screed.
Create a banner. Scroll.
To me, this is completeness of play. This is just the precision of the way that Ohio State has played. Plus, you have had Indiana has had the close game against Oregon, close game against Iowa. Ohio State really has only had the close game against Texas, and that was only close. I mean, 1 or 2 touchdowns the entire game, but Texas scored there at the end to make it a 7-point game. So, like, this makes sense. I'm just a little surprised by it.
So they have not. Okay, so Memphis is
unranked,
but they are the top group of 5 team, or
right.
non-power team. So it is Memphis. That would be the number 12 team. So I'm just checking my work real quickly here, and then I'll put the graphic up so you can see, everyone can see the whole thing.
And Mike, we'll get to your super chat, and Ryan will get to your super chat. I'm going to take them down when Tom puts his graphic up so we can see the full screen. Your super chats are noted and appreciated, and we will hit them quickly.
They will be addressed.
Sorry, I had to put Virginia in the college football playoff field. A real sentence I just said out loud.
It's 1990 all over again.
Man, Herman Moore is not walking through that door.
No.
Oh, Oregon versus Texas Tech to feed into Ohio State. Could have that nice rematch back out at the Rose Bowl again.
All right. I'm going to assume I've done this correctly, which is a thing that never bites me in the butt ever, so it should be fine.
First team out, Texas.
First team out, Texas. Second team out, Oklahoma, because you have 2 teams out of that, the top 12 of the rankings that are in the playoff. You're guaranteed to get 2 conference champions other than that. So here you go. There, for those of you not able to watch ESPN, there is the field as it's laid out, and I put in the first 6 teams out just so you can sort of see who's potentially knocking on the door there. And, a team like Louisville or Georgia Tech, they are not really 4 spots out. They just need to get ahead of Virginia, Virginia is right ahead of Louisville. They just, Virginia really slots between Utah and Louisville, but because they're currently the highest ranked ACC team, they would get into the field.
Yeah, and they're the only undefeated ACC team in conference play. Is that correct? And then we got a bunch of 1-loss teams in there as well.
Yes, Virginia is the only undefeated team in conference play, even though they lost to an ACC team because it was technically a non-conference game because college football is the best and the dumbest. But
was that NC State?
I believe it was NC State, yes. Yeah. NC State has wins over
the top
Virginia
2 teams
and Georgia Tech, but has been completely terrible other than that.
Yeah. And then you will have Miami closes the season at Pitt, which, I'm sure it'll be fine. The weather's going to be fine for Miami. Don't worry about that. They'll be okay. But looking at this, so Memphis, Georgia feeding into Alabama, Oregon, Texas Tech feeding into Ohio State, Virginia, Ole Miss feeding into A&M, Notre Dame, BYU feeding into Indiana. Again, I love the idea of Notre Dame and Indiana playing in the playoffs. I don't see, again, that the number 1 seed gets the best road in this. And I don't know how you make that happen. You just get your preferred location. Certainly you're going to take anything with the ACC is like, well, that's pretty good. But Ohio State having the opportunity to play a Big 12 team and an Oregon team that is up and down. I don't know if that's the easiest road on there. I might go. I don't even know. Like, they're all very similar. I don't think there's any team outside of maybe Ohio State and Indiana that instills fear in anybody this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at all the advanced statistical systems, they all kind of have Ohio State and Indiana as like a step ahead. And I think I was watching with the TV on mute, but the ESPN kind of had teams like in groups, and they had Texas A&M in a group with Ohio State and Indiana. So I guess the argument is that they're in that sort of top tier as well, which, maybe that's possibly, it just doesn't feel like, I think when the season is over, I always compare years to 2019, where you had that LSU team with Joe Burrow and that Ohio State team with Chase Young and Jeff Okudah and Jordan Fuller and Justin Fields, and that Clemson team with Trevor Lawrence and all those guys. that's a year where, those three teams might all be the best team this year. But I think that's kind of a function of some of the talent being a little more spread out and the realities of NIL and the transfer portal. You don't have the absolute juggernaut team that you have seen at times in the past. And teams like Ohio State that have stacked a ton of talent. I mean, Julian Sayin and Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs and Arvell Reese, these are all guys that are going to be top 10, top 15 kind of picks. That's really the exception to the rule. There aren't that many teams like that this year. And Ohio State, for as much talent as they were replacing after last year, may be the single most talented team in the country. And, we saw last year, no matter what the regular season, no matter what happens the regular season, sometimes that talent will just sort of shine through in the postseason.
Yeah, in terms of, I'm just looking at Miami, like you could pretty much assume they're out of it because they have 2 losses in the ACC, and their losses to teams ahead of them, and so they'd have to get ahead of at least one of those teams, and then hope others lose. And I just don't see that happening. But the ACC will kind of get a little wild, I do think, also at some point this year. Super chat from Mike Farino. I will say I have an entire post on the board questioning if Oregon is actually good. I'm just surprised the committee also had that opinion. Well, there are a lot of people with subscriptions there, so don't be surprised. But yeah, that was the most surprising thing for me. Oregon at 9. That's it's 3 spots lower than the AP. It's going to be interesting to watch the AP now slide things down to fit the committee, which is generally what happens. Super chat from Ryan Dawes. How big of a fit does Cignetti throw after tonight? Kevin, is this is this something that's going to anger him? Will he not care? Is this an issue in the Cignetti household in the Indiana program tonight?
He's calling up random 972 numbers in Grapevine, Texas, asking people to Google him right now. I mean, because all he does is win. But no, you use it as motivation. They don't think anything of you. And plus, too, I mean, Indiana's just going to have to. I mean, the path to respectability in terms of the CFP is going to run through Indianapolis, and I'm sure he's hoping that it's Ohio State in a lot of regards because you gotta if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. Woo! To be able to earn that spot, and Ohio State's been a bit of a bugaboo for him. So I think he's fine. I mean, he'll come out, and whenever his next press availability is we've done everything we've been asked to do. We're beating teams by 40 points or whatever, but they're also going and playing deep into the game with their offense or whatever. I know there are a lot of Ohio State fans that'd like to see Ohio State beat teams by 40, but just win, baby. It's a long season.
Tom, do you know who this is really bad news for?
What specifically?
The slight from the committee. This is bad news.
Well, I'm going to say the Penn State Nittany Lions, who don't need anything else to go against them. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to prove your point on whatever point you want to prove here. And I think for like Oregon, to go back to the question earlier about, or the comment about Oregon earlier, Oregon, I think two of the remaining games are number 19 USC, number 20 Iowa. So they have plenty of chances to beat teams that the committee views as, good, solid teams and to move up. So this is far from, and also I did a show on last week about Big Ten tiebreakers. And if Ohio State loses to Michigan, Oregon is in prime position to go play for the Big Ten championship and get another shot at Indiana. And you beat Indiana, if Oregon wins out and wins the Big Ten championship, Oregon's going to be Oregon's going to have a first round bye. Like, that's not even a question. So super chat from Dave Burke. Thanks for doing the chat. Don't make this the only one you do. We actually do this every week during the college football playoff ranking shows. So we've been doing this for years. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. We'll be here every week to do that. And thank you, Alan, for becoming a member.
And then just so to give you guys a little bit of a note, I'm going to be dropping off here in a few minutes to go do the teleconference at 8:45. We'll come back and let you know what the committee people had to say and their justifications for all of this outrageousness that we have seen. And, I'll have two questions for them. First of all, how dare you? Second of all, where do you get off? And that's the orders of march on this one.
Unless you put yourself in as Tony Dennett, you're not getting any questions then.
Let's touch on a couple things that are a little bit the same and a little bit different from last year. Cause I think as we're putting the bracket together, people may be wondering, well, don't they have to have an ACC team in the top 4? And don't they have to have a Big 12 team in the top 4? That's different this year. They got rid of the top 4 teams must be Ohio Bobcats tie the game against Miami 3-3. 7 seconds left in the first half. I know you were all waiting with bated breath on that update. Sorry. Someone commenting, having to watch us at normal speed is really throwing him. And I do have the same thing on podcasts where if I have to hear like 1x speed, it makes me think everyone's on Quaaludes or something. But so anyway, back to my earlier point. They no longer have the first round buys exclusively for the top 4 conference champions. So that's why you see 2 Big Ten teams and 2 SEC teams with first round buys there. Just to put the, sort of set the stage for what this is going to look like. First round games it's the weekend of December 19th and 20th. Those are on campus sites. So it would be at Georgia, at Texas Tech, at Ole Miss, and at BYU for those games. And then the playoff quarterfinals, the Big Ten champion will play in the Rose Bowl. So whatever, whether that's the number 1 seed or the number 3 seed, whoever, whatever number it is, the Big Ten champion will be slotted into the Rose Bowl. The SEC champion is slotted into the Sugar Bowl. This is all based on the old contracts between the conferences and the bowls. This is the last year of those contracts. This will potentially change next year. If the ACC team is one of the top 4, they would automatically be slotted into the Orange Bowl. And then the last one is the Cotton Bowl, which I think would be the Big 12 champion if they are in there. And then the semifinals are in the Peach Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl this year. And the locations of those are determined when they announce the bracket on Selection Sunday on December 7th or whatever it is this year. They will announce it's based on the number 1 seed and which of those bowl locations is closer to the home campus of the number 1 seed. So if the number 1 seed is, if the number 1 seed is Ohio State or Indiana or Texas A&M or Alabama or Georgia or Ole Miss, if any of the current top 6 teams end up being the number 1 seed, the number 1 seed and that side of the bracket will be slotted into the Peach Bowl. And then the other side will be slotted into the Fiesta Bowl. If it's Texas Tech or BYU that happens to be the number 1 seed, then the number 1 seed will be slotted into the Fiesta Bowl, and then the other side will go to the Peach Bowl. And I've had people ask this on our board a bunch. If Ohio State is set to play Georgia in the semifinals, wouldn't they change that so that you wouldn't have to play Georgia in the Peach Bowl? And the answer is no. They don't look at that. At least last year they didn't look at that. Because they don't assume that certain teams are going to win. Last year, Oregon was the number 1 seed. That side of the bracket got slotted into the Cotton Bowl, and Oregon would have, as the number 1 seed, had to play Texas in the state of Texas in the semifinals. They don't care. They don't look at that. So that based on how it is right now, Ohio State would play in the Rose Bowl, and then the Peach Bowl, and then the national championship game, which is in Miami.
El Suzaba, who scares you guys the most? For me, it's Texas A&M and Bama if they play their A game. In terms of, if you're an Ohio State fan, which of these teams should concern you? Texas A&M has a quarterback that will die on the field and do everything that he can to make plays. They've got a defense that will give up a bunch of points. So when I see that, I just feel like Ohio State can outscore enough and, not give up as many. Alabama, I need to see more from them. I actually haven't really necessarily watched much of them of late. I saw Ole Miss go up and down the field against Georgia until like the fourth quarter. So like that doesn't really do much for me. I don't know. There's nobody here that Ohio State can't beat, as we know. I'm just fascinated to watch Indiana play more and more better competition to see what that actually looks like.
Yeah, this to me, I think last year everyone looked at Indiana and kind of like tousled their hair and said, "Isn't that cute? Look at you, like a big boy in the college football." And and then the result on the field kind of looked like that. And Indiana last year they didn't play anyone, and they annihilated the terrible teams that they played. But then they played Ohio State and they lost by a reasonable margin. And but they got in because they really only had to play one difficult team all season, and that was it. And this year, Indiana, to me, you go on the road and you beat Oregon on the road. Like, okay, we're not having that conversation anymore. That was the game to me that really changed my impression of India, because I came into this year thinking, well, they had a great year last year, once in a lifetime. They'll take a step back this year. Maybe they go 9-3, and that would also be a great year. 9-3 Indiana going to the Citrus Bowl. Man, would that be an amazing season? And they have taken a step forward this year, not backwards. I think they have improved on the lines. I think they have a better quarterback than they did last year. I think they probably have better skill talent than they had last year. And, you sort of expected, well, okay, some of the James Madison guys will be gone and you won't be able to replicate that. No, they have picked right up where they've left off, and maybe are even better. And they have the current resume comparisons up there, and FPI has Ohio State first, Indiana second, and Texas A&M ninth. So the people from FPI are going to get airbrushed out of the photos like the water minister next to Stalin in the ESPN family portrait.
Sober as a Holy Ghost. What analytics is Texas A&M so much further ahead in that they should be number one according to the SEC people? Well, how many SEC wins does Ohio State have? 1. How many SEC wins does Indiana have? I don't think they have any. And so how many does Texas A&M have? Like 6. So you do the math there. That you don't need analytics, you just need arithmetics. And Texas A&M has it. But again, somebody else mentioned like not wanting to, I think it was Market X, not wanting to face a team with a really good defensive line, because that's a great equalizer. I was just thinking, Penn State did pretty good getting pressure. So, maybe that's a good answer. And then I'm also thinking, but Julian Sain was 20 of 23 for 300 and some yards with 4 touchdowns, facing the most pressure he had faced all season long. So even with pressure, things are still, pretty good with the Ohio State offense. That's why they're going to be the favorite, and they are the favorite to win it all. But again, it's every year now when you have this tournament, it's the hardest one ever, every single year. And will it be more difficult than last year? There might be fewer games, but as Ryan's reviews and overviews, for fun, I listened to this at half speed. Tony sounds wasted. Tom sounds like he is teaching a kindergarten class about the playoffs. Yeah. But Ohio State's going to be the favorite, and it still all comes down to matchups. And I just think Ohio State is capable of handling more matchups than everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. And I saw someone say it's ridiculous to say that Ohio State shouldn't be afraid of anyone. I don't think Indiana should be afraid of anyone. I don't think Texas A&M should be afraid of anyone. I don't think there is a team this year that everyone looks at and goes, no one can beat that team.
Right.
Like even privately, no one's saying, well, I mean, no one's beating them. There were some of those Nick Saban Alabama teams that I think everyone sort of looked at, and they didn't always win, but there were some Nick Saban Alabama teams that you looked at and went, I don't think anyone's beating that team this year. And sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong, but I don't think there's that team this year where everyone's kind of going, well, everyone else is playing for second.
Super chat from Mike Farino. Getting the group of 5 team this year will be a massive advantage. Last year, Boise was a respectable 25th in FEI. Memphis was around 50th last I looked this year. And, I'll be interested to see if San Diego State can do anything. They pitched a shutout against Cal this year to get a win over a Power 4 team, and they're doing well there in the Mountain West. Does it have to be an AAC team? Like, or we all just they are the 5th best conference.
Mhm.
So it's just like, it's understood that as long as they have one loss, then they will do it. But there's no guarantee. I don't know what Memphis' schedule is, but there's no guarantee they're walking out with just one loss this season. So there's going to be an opportunity for some other one-loss conference team out there. And I know they play Navy in a couple of weeks. Memphis does. Navy has one loss.
Tulane, ECU, and Navy.
And Tulane, Memphis is 29th right now in SP Plus, and it all depends on which version of advanced analytics you want to use. But Memphis is 29th, North Texas is 30th. Those could very well be the teams that meet for the AAC championship. Memphis 13th on offense, 62nd on defense. North Texas 4th on offense, 79th on defense. So I guess my strongest opinion on the AAC is bet the over.
It's just me, Tim 79. How much impact will the result of the conference championship rankings? I'm trying to read this question.
Well, I think it's basically the is the question about the conference championship game and how much those will impact the.
Like, if you lose it, are you still in? And I think,
I mean,
it still depends on your record and also your conference.
But it definitely depends on your record and your conference. But what we saw last year, and they stated this very openly beforehand and really stuck with it, probably to the detriment of the overall rankings, was if you make the conference championship game, you will not be punished for losing the conference championship game. And you ended up, I think, with rankings that were, the fact that all 4 teams that got first round buys all lost, that's not a great look for, nailed it in terms of the conference rankings. And that's part of the reason why you no longer have the conference champions. You have to be a conference champion to get a top 4 spot. That's one of the reasons that changed. But I would guess that they will probably continue to honor those conference championship games, where if you're playing a game when most of the country isn't, that you shouldn't be punished for losing it. I would guess they will maintain that, because otherwise, that is going to hurt the likelihood of continuing to have those conference championship games, because then teams aren't going to want to play in them, and coaches are going to go, well, I'm not doing that. That's stupid.
Well, and I'm going to jump off here, and you and Tom and you and Kevin can discuss whether or not anybody, if Ohio State and Indiana are your top 2 teams, should they be playing any of their starters in the Big Ten championship game? And I'll say goodbye.
They should just chop the pot and get on with it, or whatever. But we'll save that for when Tony jumps on the conference call. I've got about 15 questions in the queue to keep us busy while the glue that holds the show together is gone. Or is he gone now? All right.
We send him to the glue factory. Yes.
Yes. It's like sniffing glue, like model airplane glue. Is that even a thing anymore? Do kids do that, or is it just all 6, 7?
It's mostly 6, 7 from what I can tell. But
all right, let me go. And I've been marking some of these. Some of these we've already gotten to. Markitex. Ohio State has Ric Flair. I'm going to be more obnoxious, more overbearing, and I'm going to make you all learn to love it, because you will have no choice. I mean, we've sat there and talked about that there's maybe not that one dominating team out there that's just like 50% better than everybody else, but Ohio State, the defending champion, is taking care of business. I mean, obviously, now at this point you can look back at the Texas game. It's like, well, maybe they should have won that by more, but it was Julian Sayen's first start, and Mr. 80% passer, completion rating is, I think that if Ohio State had another crack at Texas right now, I think we would see a much more decisive Ohio State win.
Yeah, I think you can look at a lot of those early season games, and boy, I bet Alabama would like another crack at Florida State, for example, from those week 1 games. Before you get to the next one of substance, I did just want to have the juxtaposition of the username and the comment here From sober as the Holy Ghost, you're not allowed to have fun and sniff glue anymore. Crying, laughing emoji. All right, so go ahead.
I'm going to jump another fun from Isaac McIntyre saying, if I say 6-7 again, I should have to eat Burger King for a week as punishment. Thankfully, they closed the Burger King here in Pickerington, so I know where one is in Reynoldsburg, and I purposely avoid it. So 6-7.
There you go.
All right, let me get back to some of these other questions on here. Nicholas Marconi, something tells me Cignetti is just fine with their ranking. It gives due respect over A&M while giving plenty of internal motivation from being put behind Ohio State.
Yeah, I don't think coaches ever mind getting slighted for something that doesn't actually matter. Coaches will care if they are the first team left out of the college football playoff. Coaches may care if they are the first team that is not given a bye or the first team that has to go on the road instead of playing at home. But until there is some material difference in their path to a championship, they are perfectly happy. Right. We talked to Ryan Day earlier today, and Ryan Day could not say often enough how he wasn't going to pay attention and didn't care, and it really didn't matter. And really, it doesn't, because I go back to the very first one of these in 2014, and everyone is excited to see what is this brave new era of college football going to look like. Who was the number one team in the first ever college football playoff ranking show in November 2014? If everyone, you can play the Jeopardy music in your head. Kevin, do you know the answer?
Wasn't that Mississippi State?
Mississippi State. Yes. 7-time recent national champion, Mississippi State. It matters. Yes. There you go. So yes, that is sort of some fun trivia there. Last year, Arizona State, I don't believe, was ranked at all in the first playoff rankings that the committee put out. And yeah, OSU was ranked, I think, as the commenter said, somewhere like 16th or 14th or something like that.
14th or 16.
Yeah.
I had 14 in my mind, but
yeah,
I don't know.
And Ohio State won the national championship that year. Arizona State was not ranked at all in the rankings for the first rankings last year, and then they ended up getting a first round bye and very nearly knocking out Texas in the Peach Bowl last year. That went to double overtime, I think. So, this is very much the first one of these shows. To me, this reminds me a little bit of when we get to watch the first practice of the spring or the first practice of fall camp. And it's like, what did you learn? It was like, well, we just kind of got a little bit of a data set right now. We got a little bit of a data point right now. And then we can kind of compare it as to where things stand a week or two from now and see how, is the committee staying consistent with its rankings? Are they staying intellectually consistent about, head-to-head wins matter or don't matter or whatever it is. This is an interesting data point for us to have, but I would not start booking travel based on this just yet.
No, but they just did put up the all-state playoff predictor. Indiana and Ohio State are both at 99% of making the playoffs, followed by A&M at 97, Alabama at 93, and to round out the top 5, Georgia at 86%.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of that is just you have the margin for error right now. Ohio State can lose 2 games and still make the playoff. If a 10-2 Ohio State team is making the playoff, a 10-2 Indiana team is making the playoff. And you look at the schedules, and Ohio State, the next 3 weeks are playing games that they are going to be favored by at least 3 touchdowns in. And Indiana, I think, has a bunch of those as well. And so, yeah, you have a game you could lose at Michigan, certainly to end the season, and you could certainly lose the Big Ten championship game. But even if they do, you probably need to lose a third game out of those, out of that sequence to not make the playoff. So yeah, I think Ohio State and Indiana kind of have, done the majority of the work they need to do to get in, and Texas Tech, I think, or Texas A&M, I'm sorry, is in that boat as well. Same for Alabama. You look at Alabama's resume. Yeah, they lost to Florida State, but they have so many good wins that it's like, yeah, that is a playoff worthy resume. Georgia at number 5, lost to Alabama. I guess them missing out probably involves one SEC loss, and I don't have their schedule in front of me, but one more SEC loss and then losing to Georgia Tech. And if they do, sure, but I don't think it's particularly likely that they will do that.
William Palmer, how are they going to justify Bama being that damn high after looking mid all year and losing to FSU? I mean, you sit there. I mean, again, it's kind of like the Miami Notre Dame argument. You got to look at the whole picture. I mean, yes, I don't think Alabama has necessarily looked like the number 4 team in the nation for stretches of the year, but there are points where they don't look like they're playing with their food, and they've looked pretty good. But you know, SEC means something right there. I certainly have not, Georgia's had itself bailed out a couple of times. So, where is really the cut? Some years it's like, okay, there's 8 teams or there's 12 teams or there's 5 teams that really could win the national championship. I think we've seen on any given Saturday, anything can happen here, but is Alabama really, does Alabama really deserve to be in that upper cut?
Well, so we'll look at Georgia and Alabama really quickly. Georgia has a 3-point overtime win at Tennessee. They lost to Alabama at home by 3. They beat Ole Miss at home by 8. Those are their kind of ranked games. They beat Florida. They had a close win over Florida. They had a 10-point win at Auburn. They beat Kentucky. They beat Austin Peay. They beat Marshall. Like, none of that moves the needle. So you're really 2-1 in kind of meaningful games, ranked games. And the Tennessee game went to overtime. The Alabama game was a 3-point game. If you're playing competitive games against multiple ranked teams, you probably deserve to be in that conversation. You're not getting blown off the field. You can lose a game and not get blown off the field. It shouldn't knock you down too much. Alabama, they had that weird week 1 game against Florida State, which, I think both, even the people who are going to say you have to hold that against them would acknowledge, if those 2 teams played right now, Florida State's not winning by 2 touchdowns. So it counts, but also you can also take into account some of the other stuff that's happened since then. And since then, win at Georgia by 3 points. They beat Vanderbilt. They win at Missouri by 3 points. They beat Tennessee. Now, they've had a close game at South Carolina. They had it was a 3-point game against Missouri. It was a 3-point game against Georgia. But they're winning these games. They finish with LSU, Oklahoma at home, and Eastern Illinois before the Iron Bowl. So I think that, barring an upset loss to Oklahoma, they're going into the SEC championship game at 11-1. And if it's Alabama and if the top 4 teams on that bracket right now, Ohio State and Indiana and Texas A&M and Alabama, they all kind of run the table and go into the Big Ten championship and the SEC championship games. Those are going to be your top 4 teams. Those are going to be the 4 teams that get a bye. If they don't lose a regular season game, those are going to be the 4 teams that get a bye. They will not hold that against them in a conference championship game loss.
I'll get back to sobers here in a minute. I got some other questions in here. Matt says, the crazy thing about all this is Ohio State is only getting better in 2026 and looking 27. Are we looking at the tide rolling on Ohio State era now? I mean, we have certainly seen a lot of success for Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State seems to be too big to fail. I mean, obviously 2011 was a bad situation for Ohio State, finishing 6-7. Obviously not taking the bowl ban that year, but I digress with all of that. But Ohio State certainly has shown some things, and I mean, this was a team that people thought Ohio State was going to be in pretty good shape, but they're losing a lot. Look at what they're losing on the defense. Look at what they're losing with Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau and the defensive tackles and Cody Simon and in the secondary. And now you have Ohio State sitting in position where they're the number 1 team in the first rankings of the CFP, and we know that and $5 gets you a cup of coffee at Starbucks at this point. But I don't disagree with Matt's point.
No, I don't either. And I looked at this team after last year's national championship and said much the same thing I said with Indiana. Great season, fantastic. You're going to cherish it forever. Expect a step back next year because you're losing 8 starters off the defense. You lost your defensive coordinator, you lost your offensive coordinator, you lost your starting quarterback, you lost both of your running backs. Yeah, they had talent. But you look at the NFL draft and boy, what is it? 14 Buckeyes got drafted, 15 Buckeyes. It was something crazy number like that. That's not easy to replace all those guys. And I think a combination of they have a handful of elite, best in the nation type, the Butkus Award list released its list of semifinalists, and there were like 12 of them, and 3 of them are on the Ohio State defense. And they have some really elite players this year, and you have one of the best offensive minds in the nation as your head coach, and you have a really bright up and comer as your offensive coordinator, and you have a guy who is really almost redefining what it means to be a college defensive coordinator now as your defensive coordinator. And the schedule has not been a murderer's row this year, but they have handled it with no drama, no nonsense. It's just been kind of just make them go squish pretty much every week. Super chat from Mike Farino. Fun fact about Vandy: they have not beaten an SEC team that has finished the game with their starting quarterback or that will finish the year with their head coach so far. That is a wild. Not finishing the year with their head coach. I wonder how much that is the boosters going, they lost to Vandy. We know Vandy's always terrible. I don't know how much of it is that, but that is a weird set of facts there.
Yeah, definitely. Vandy being the widowmaker, I just never would have seen that. Let me jump onto this one because I know this is a little more near and dear to Tom from Chip. This is great, y'all. Thank you. And can we ask the NCAA to not schedule these against the lively action happening right now, where it is 3-3 in the third quarter, Miami of Ohio playing in beautiful Athens, Ohio.
Listen, you don't have to choose. I'm partaking in Maction right now, so
we probably just got demonetized for that.
No.
I'm kidding.
I'm wearing my Bobcat green, even if it isn't Bobcat stuff. Adam Baker says guaranteed bye for the Ohio State Indiana loser. I think if Ohio State and Indiana both win out in the regular season, the loser is not going to drop enough to lose that first round bye. And really, I think Texas A&M and Alabama, if those two teams win out, I mean, unless you have, BYU is undefeated and clobbers Texas Tech, and they run the table, maybe they sneak in and get the 4 seed, maybe. But you're going to have the two SEC teams that are playing. If the two SEC teams that are playing for the SEC championship are the two highest ranked teams going into the weekend, and you have a reasonably close game, and the two Big Ten teams that are playing for the Big Ten championship are the two highest ranked, and you have a reasonably close game, I think you're going to have probably those 4 teams get that bye in the playoffs. And then that kind of works out where then you have the you have to play one extra weekend in the beginning of December, but then you get a break where you don't have to play 2 weeks later. You get your bye that weekend instead of the teams that got the week off during championship weekend.
Dave Burke, is Notre Dame just in without another loss, even with no league championship game? They are 10 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying on Notre Dame, and I think that there's some momentum behind them. It was 10. The reality is you're going to see some teams start to drop. So I think that if Notre Dame doesn't lose, it's fine. I mean, God forbid if it does lose, I mean, then things get super dicey, and I think that they fall on the wrong side of the bubble. But I don't see enough teams being able to jump them at this point. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, if they win out, they're in. You're not gonna get jumped. And as you said, there's a lot of teams ahead of them that are there are a lot of teams ahead of them that are going to lose because they're playing other teams. Like you're going to have matchups of teams ahead of you, Texas Tech and BYU, for example. They're going to play. So one of those teams is going to have a loss and is almost certainly going to fall below them. Now, Notre Dame, here's Notre Dame's remaining schedule. They have the midshipmen of Navy this week, and Navy got off to a great start, but they have clearly hit the meat of their schedule and are probably not going to win at Notre Dame. So give Notre Dame a win this weekend. After that, they go to Pitt, and that's where things get a little dicey. They finish at home against Syracuse and at Stanford. Those are both gimmies. At Pitt on November 15th, that Pitt team is surprisingly good. They have an offense that can put up points. And Notre Dame is good. Notre Dame, I think CJ Carr has come a long way this year. I love those running backs. But that Pitt team can score, and that if you're playing on the road at Pitt, that's the one where if Notre Dame beats Pitt, Notre Dame is in the playoff. If Notre Dame loses to Pitt, Notre Dame is out of the playoffs. That's all that's going to come down to.
Mike Farina with clarification on another super chat. To be clear, they were separate points. Vandy has beat SC, who lost their quarterback, Lenore Sellers, and Missouri, who lost their quarterback. Was Bo Prabula? Was that who got knocked out there?
Yes. Yeah, it was Bo Prabula. Yep.
Yeah, and then LSU has fired BK, lost to Texas and Bama. So no, we were just having fun with your comment, Mike. I mean, we were, it was keeping it lighthearted here. Us and 441 as it counts of our closest friends. Be sure to get all of your friends to join us next week when we do this again, and every subsequent week that we do this. And be sure to hit the thumbs up here on the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. The bell works about 40% of the time, but it's still a good thing to do. And the best thing you can do to support us is sign up for BuckeyeHuddle.com. And Tom, Tony, myself, we cover the team. We have great recruiting coverage. The huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby Columbus is the most chill, fantastic community that I've been a part of. All of that at Buckeye Huddle. This is the time to get on board. I mean, if you get on board right now, you're getting through the Michigan game. You're getting yourself all the way up, really, right to the beginning of, you're into Big Ten championship week if Ohio State is so fortunate to get there, which, I think we all think that that's going to be the case. So this is the month to give us a shot. I mean, if you've been on the fence or if you've been a member and you've stepped away for a little bit, get on board.
Strong agree.
Mike Brennan says, "Huddle's great. Just ignore anything I post. I'm wrong 80% of the time," which still gives you a better rate than Tony Gerdeman, who is on conference call and he can't hear what I'm saying.
Right on the Mendoza line. That's not bad. Murphy Serafino, Tom, what is the scenario that we play in the Fiesta Bowl again, been to Atlanta in 2022 and last year as well? Would love to go to Glendale if we made it to the semi. So the way Ohio State ends up in the on the side of the bracket, this is a side of the bracket thing. So if a team from the SEC, if Ohio State's not number one, basically, if Ohio State's not number one, and whichever team is number one is closer to Atlanta than they are to Glendale, then Ohio State, then the team that's number one would go to Atlanta, would be at that side of the bracket, would be seeded to Atlanta. I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this. We're going to use some, I'll paint you a scenario here. Ohio State loses the Big Ten championship game to Indiana and falls to number 3 in this bracket. Indiana is number 1. Their side of the bracket feeds into the semifinal that is at the Peach Bowl. In that case, the number 2 and number 3 seeds, that side of the bracket would feed into the Fiesta Bowl. So that's, or if Texas A&M ends up jumping Ohio State and Texas A&M ends up as the number 1 seed, actually Texas A&M would probably be considered closer to Glendale. This is one of these things where I don't know the exact mileage.
The state of Texas is so damn big, yeah.
Yeah, it might be. They will generally just look. This sounds so stupid, but this is what they have said on these conference calls with us. They will just get on MapQuest or Google Maps and say College Station to Glendale, College Station to Atlanta. Which number is smaller? That's where Texas A&M would go if Texas A&M is the number 1 seed. So if you want Ohio State to go to, play
Atlanta is closer
this year. What's that? Atlanta's closer
by about 300 miles.
Okay, so there you go. So yeah, Ohio State would just have to be probably either the 2 or the 3 seed, because it looks like pretty much any of the other top seeds, Georgia, Atlanta, Indiana, Texas A&M, would almost all go to would almost all feed into the Peach Bowl. So you can't have Ohio State as the number one and Ohio State plays in the Fiesta Bowl.
There you go.
So this is from Tony. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm punching in the Facebook version because it lets us type more words there. Mm-hmm. On A&M, they are really small margins when you're talking about OSU, IU, and A&M. Defensively, they're just lower than the other two in terms of metrics. You're trying to find separators, and that was a separator for us.
And, I'm just looking at I just have SP Plus pulled up right now. In terms of defense, Ohio State is 1, Indiana is 2, Texas A&M is 21. That's kind of because the offenses, Indiana's 1, Texas A&M's 2, Ohio State's 8. But, 21 of all the teams in the top 7 of SP Plus, Texas A&M's defense is the lowest ranked of the offenses and defenses there. Beyond that, it's Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's offense is ranked 39th. That's the next team that's got a unit ranked that low.
It's just me, Tim. Can we just win the Natty now? I feel confident. Something about pride in the fall or whatever, but I get it. It's going to be a fun November. It's going to be a fun November. I know that there's going to be a couple of games that people are not going to exactly be supercharged about, starting with Purdue. I just submitted my Purdue prediction, which won't run until Friday. But to say that 2018's not walking through that door would be an understatement. But every little thing matters at this point. Every little you want to be playing your best ball starting around November. Ohio State already had a chance with Penn State. You got to keep building on that.
Yeah, and they have a lot of stuff they've got to improve before you can, before they're ready. No one right now, there's no team right now that would roll through the playoff with sort of the final version of everyone else's team that they're going to be facing in December and January. You have to be playing your best football in December and in January. And, this time last year, I think people would have looked at Oregon and said, no one's beating Oregon. And then Oregon was down 34-0 before the end of the second quarter in their first college football playoff game. So there's still, this sounds like coach speak, but the reason coaches say it is because it's true. You do have to, they have to keep working and improving on running the football and lots of that kind of fun stuff. They got to get the offensive line sorted out, all that. And they have the luxury of some time to do that, and they have the luxury of a little bit of a margin for error right now, where even if they do lose one game before the playoff or before the Big Ten championship game, that's not the end of their season. That's a luxury they have. And really, we talked Labor Day weekend, the fact that they had beaten Texas week 1, that was, boy, unless something crazy happens, they're probably almost certainly in the college football playoff. That's one of the advantages of playing a good team out of conference.
I just want to put this one up because I like the username Temple of Brutus. Word up, players. Glad to see you, Temple of Brutus. You are a new name for us, so I'm glad you found us here. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com. I want to get back to this other one from Mozart's Ghost, who is a friend of the show. Michigan game still matters a lot. And abso-frickin-bleepin-lutely. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it matters a lot for all the reasons that it always matters, that you want to have bragging rights and you want to, they want to end that streak this year and all that kind of stuff. It also matters for the Big Ten championship because, like I said, I did a whole show on this last week with, running all these different scenarios. And if Oregon and Ohio State and Michigan all win out, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State win out, and then Michigan beats Ohio State in Ann Arbor, then Oregon's going to almost certainly go to the Big Ten championship game ahead of Michigan and Ohio State. And if Oregon loses one of their games to USC or to Iowa, for example, then you're probably looking at Michigan getting the Big Ten tiebreaker over Ohio State. There's scenarios where it could be USC, but it depends. But you could, Ohio State could go undefeated into Ann Arbor, lose that game, and because Michigan doesn't really have any more tough games before that, Michigan's going to go into that game almost certainly with one Big Ten loss as well. And if Michigan beats Ohio State could miss the Big Ten championship game again this year. And at that point, maybe you do fall out of the top four, and then maybe you do have to play a first round game in Ohio Stadium again. So, there is always a lot on the line in that game. But this year, it could be Ohio State playing for a spot in Indy and a first round bye in the playoff, and Michigan playing for a spot in Indy and a spot in the playoff. Period.
Sober as a Holy Ghost. We posted this earlier. I said we'd get back to it. Ohio State is number 131 in total plays this season, but has the most efficient quarterback in the country. If they wanted to, they could play more snaps per game and smoke everyone. And, a lot of that goes into reference of the offensive carnage that Indiana has been this year, hanging 40, 50 points on everything. And I've watched post-game shows, college football final, things like that, highlight the fact that, well, look at what they're doing. They're just disassembling teams or whatever. But to Sober as a Holy Ghost point, Ohio State, 131, what are they, 136 right now with transitional teams?
Mm-hmm.
They are definitely not running tempo. We've seen a smidge of tempo this year, but I've also seen games where I think they've had fewer than 60 offensive plays, and that's gross in some ways. But there's a lot of football left to be played. Let's look at this. You could still have, you still have the 4 games left of the regular season. You still have a potential conference championship game, and then you have several rounds of the college football playoff. You need to keep your guys fresh, and something that we saw, Ohio State was incredibly fresh. As much as you can be with the physicality and demands of college football during its football championship run last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we went last year from listening to Ryan Day complain about the fact that they didn't get, very many plays in a lot of these games. And boy, that's really has to change the way you coach, to at the end of the year, him kind of like chuckling and just being like, yeah, we did that intentionally. It was an intentional thing to, they were never running tempo. And it was just to limit the number of snaps, they talk about them in terms of exposures. And that counts for times you're getting whacked in practice. That counts times you get hit in games, just reps you're taking at full speed. And they are trying to limit those because you don't want to be the team that you think about how beaten up and tired and battered everyone was at the end of an old college football season. Now you're tacking potentially, 2 to 4 more games on the end of those seasons than you would have had a couple of years ago. So that was very much a slow things down. Just assume you're going to win play to play, and you're going to be able to win, on the whole, just out talent people a lot. And so you're willing to not necessarily try to get every single advantage, and just sort of preserve your guys, limit the number of hits they take, limit the number of reps they take, all that kind of stuff. Rotate guys as much as they can. And then you get to the end of the regular season, you get into the playoff, and your guys are fresher, and your guys aren't necessarily injured the way other guys are. They took a real 2-headed monster approach to running back last year in a way they really hadn't very often in the past. And then by the end of the year, Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, they were both much healthier than they had been in previous years, when, Quinshon Judkins had like half as many carries last year as he did at Ole Miss on a per game basis, and he looked incredibly fresh at the end of the year. He broke off a long run in the national championship game, and that is really like one of the big overarching things that they're trying to keep in mind right now. And yes, it does show up for sure as being number 131 in tempo. That's one of the places that definitely shows up for you.
Temple of Brutus, is it better to go through an end of a season SEC bloodbathing, or steamroll an easier last 4 games? I'm not naming names, but it's Ohio State and Indiana. The thing is let's not forget that the SEC is the one that invented Chicken Bleep Saturday. Generally the second to final Saturday of the regular season, playing against the Citadel or Tuscaloosa Barber College or Truck Masters or whatever. And there's some tough truckers, don't get me wrong, but They don't have time to practice much. I think you want to have challenges at every step of the season. I think you want to have, if you could sit there and say we're going to have 3 really tough talent equated games or whatever. I want one in the first, one in the first third of the season. I want one in the second third of the season. I want one in the third of the season. I don't want to go through a murderer's row at the end and run the risk of injuries and everything else. But you also don't want to let up, and you want to sit there and be taking practice swings with the batting donut on. You don't want to, you want to sit there. You want practice to be tougher than the games. You want these games to get you ready, because once you get to the playoff, I mean, again, we're looking at, let me punch this off here, at Tom's bracket here. If things were to hold, I mean, you'd be getting Oregon or Texas Tech, and then you would be getting Alabama, and then you would be getting, A&M or Indiana or whatever. I mean, you're going to be playing some real big boy games. So you don't want to let up too much, but everybody wants to sit there and it's like, we want conference expansion. We want to see all the best teams in the Big Ten. No, you don't. You need to have a couple of moments of being able to come up for breath. There are teams who I won't name because it's not fair to them, but that you sit there and you're like, okay, all things being equal, this should be a pretty straightforward game. By going out and adding Florida State, which maybe is a bad example, and some of these other teams out there, and having a monster schedule, I think you're just setting yourself up for bad news.
Yeah, and I think there's also you hear the narrative about, oh, the SEC is the deepest conference, and everyone's playing the 85 Bears every single Saturday. There's no exceptions. I'm just going to read you Texas A&M schedule: UTSA, Utah State, at Notre Dame. Okay, there's one. Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, at Arkansas, at LSU, and then they're off this week. That's their schedule to date. They have played 1, 2, 3 teams in a row. Oh, sorry, 4 teams. They've played 4 of their last 5 games are against teams that have fired their coaches. They played 1 team that's ranked and 4 teams that have fired their coaches. And then they finish with at Missouri, South Carolina, Samford, and at Texas. So they're going to have Notre Dame and Texas, and maybe Missouri will finish the year ranked, and maybe they won't. And so Tony is waving to us that he is ready to join us. Tony, we're just talking about the Texas A&M's murderous schedule of Texas, Notre Dame, and ...
There was a Texas just a national writer asking about on Indiana not challenging themselves in a non-conference like Ohio State and Texas A&M. Does the committee take that into account? And the answer is basically, we don't look at philosophy, only the games that are played. And when you look at the games that are played, I think they're seeing the same thing that we are, that you can tout all of the SEC that you want, but you also have to play some of that SEC stuff. And Texas A&M, I think they're undefeated a lot because of the schedule, even though, they did have they have 2 ranked wins, just like Ohio State and Indiana do.
So what was did the committee have any words of wisdom in terms of why Ohio State and Indiana were ranked 1, 2, and then why Ohio State was 1 and Indiana was 2?
Yeah, the main thing for Ohio State and Indiana, why Ohio State was number 1, was offensive line play and defense over Indiana. That's what they had over Indiana. And a few explosive players as well. So Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and the like, that helps. But yeah, they talked about it a lot. They just, in the end, they liked Ohio State's offensive line more than Indiana's, and they liked Ohio State's defense more than Indiana's. And both of the defenses were preferred over Texas A&M, who has really good offense and all of that, but defensively they just didn't have the same metrics and stats that Ohio State and Indiana has. And the quote was, "You're trying to find separators," and that was a separator for us in terms of the 3 defenses, and that's why it was Ohio State, Indiana at the very tip top, and then Texas A&M. But they always try to group these things in 3s and then go from there. The questions about Notre Dame and Miami, Like, when do you stop looking at head to head? And it's like, well, we look at head to head if we're comparing two comparable teams, and we're not. So that's why there's no need to discuss Notre Dame versus Miami. They do not like the way Miami has fallen off with all the offensive turnovers and the two losses, even though they're two close losses. But don't lose in the ACC. That's my number one tip. That's my number one piece of advice to everybody. Do not lose in the ACC. At one point, the new chair, whose name is, one sec, let me bring it back up here, is Mac Rhodes, basically said, hey, the ACC's got 5 ranked teams. So, they should be proud of that. This is a very, very participation-y trophy that he was talking about. And it's like, hey, I know you got Virginia like ranked 14th, but there's 5 ranked teams. There's a lot of happy moms and dads out there.
Yeah, but you said 5, and I thought that can't be right. But yes, they have 14, 15, 17, 18, and
24.
24, yes. But having 4 teams from 14 to 18, that's very impressive. That's also absolutely scientifically designed for them to get no more than 1 team into the college football playoff based on where they are, because you're not going to have 2 teams stock up on incredible, a bunch, you're going to have 2 teams each pick up 3 impressive wins between now and then to get themselves up to 8 and 9, where then they could have 1 team survive and lose a conference championship game and not fall out.
So that was the gist from the teleconference. Not a ton of outstanding stuff. They did our buddy Pat Murphy asked, when you guys are watching film, how much do you rely on the former coaches like Mark D'Antonio, Chris Holton, maybe Mike Riley are all on the committee? And they said, know your strengths within the committee room. Those are experts. They're pros. Rely on them. Chris Holt, of course, the inventor, if you will, of the pistol offense. So great reverence should be shown to him. Where are we in terms of the we can run through these super chats, and then we can
say this super chat is the most current and the only one we have. We cleared the queue in questions. Okay. So we're almost at 90 minutes. I know that people are jonesing to talk about this, especially with a lot of people not having ESPN, but they're on to basketball at this point, and I'm on to watching Miami versus OU football. But Kentucky, do we have any baby manimals in waiting on defense?
And I know you guys have been talking a bunch. I will say, how about this? Riley Pettyjohn might be a guy to watch next year. If they can't keep Arvell Reese, from he's probably leaving. But you could see a situation where Arvell Reese is, or Peyton Pierce is the Sonny Styles, and Riley Pettyjohn is the Arvell Reese. I'm not putting that on him, but that's just something they could ask him to do. The other thing is Arvell Reese is just so much bigger than everybody else. Like, he's bigger than Riley Pettyjohn, so don't expect that exact thing. But I think he's one of the next guys up. We've seen Devin Sanchez. They need to find some guys on the defensive line, on the interior, because the guys that they have are kind of playing right now. Zion Grady might be somebody to keep an eye on. I think they're going to do everything they can to bring Kenyatta Jackson back, and we will see if they can do that. And Mozart's ghost agrees. Pettyjohn is a beast. Had some good moments early in the season, was a special teams player of the game this past week. So don't sleep on that stuff that is happening as well. Just because you're not out there making plays on defense doesn't mean you can't make plays elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So, and Troy V says Epi Satanale might be that guy. Another good one. Mm-hmm. Matt Reynolds, hey, maybe we can get Tackett Curtis from Penn? Wisconsin. No, he's a Wisconsin.
There might be another T. Curtis then or whatever, because Tackett Curtis is at Wisconsin.
Well, yeah. And Chaz Coleman is the one who's at Penn State.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And he had a very good day. He was creating some havoc against Ohio State. It's going to be very interesting to see the portal that is available, and then also the recruits that are available from these coaching changes and flip season and all of that. Other than that, are we good? Can we call it a day? Are we ready to go?
Yes, I think we can call it a day. But let people know, for those who are jonesing for live football content, we will be in West Lafayette this weekend and have live content from there. We'll have live interviews from Ohio State on Wednesday evening. We've got all sorts of stuff coming for you. And then, of course, we will be back next Tuesday, rain or shine, for week 2 of the College Football Playoff Committee Says Some Stuff.
And as it's just me, Tim79 says, you can go. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate that. We appreciate you all of you, for hanging out with us for these 90 minutes. If you have not yet done so, please hit the thumbs up. That will do it from here tonight. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.